Apparently I forgot to mark a page here, but I marked down what I'm doing though. Meanwhile, this is Doc Ock coming to you live today. Doc Ock at noon and 9. So you know what time it must be right now. Anyhow, we got something special for you today. This is the last day of the month of August 2020. Today is my brother's birthday, my brother Daryl. Happy birthday to you, Daryl. I don't know how old you are. Don't ask. Don't tell. I don't want to know. I just know you're up there and getting older by the minute. And that's all good. That's all good. Okay. Yep. That is all good. So, yeah, today is my birthday, August 31st, 2020. And let's go ahead and get this show on the road. We're running a little behind here, but we'll catch up. Proverb for today is, a loose tooth will not rest until it's pulled out. A loose tooth will not rest until it's pulled out. And that's from Ethiopia. Poem for today, coming into overstanding. Coming into overstanding. Now, many years ago, I used to try to talk, quote unquote, Jamaican, or whatever you want to call it. We call it Ayaric. Okay. But what I found is that people had a hard time understanding what I was saying. So I just went back to speaking a language that I grew up on, which was English, regardless of the fact that whether it's my language or somebody else's language, it just happens to be the one I'm most fluent in. So I figured if somebody was going to misunderstand me, might as well misunderstand me in English. At least I know what I said. So overstanding is as opposed to understanding. Coming into overstanding, searching for reasons, rationale, a touchstone, answers to questions, lodged in hearts and minds, floating in limbo where unseen tentacles of electrodes extend. Any sign, any signal, red light, green light, amber, hanging on the corner, waiting for the number, waiting for the ship, the slip, the tip that will take us to the tablet, the tableau, the dresser, the bureau, the canister, the banister, the balance, the chalice, the nectar, the connector, the meaning of our waking and sleeping, walking and talking, inhaling and exhaling, crying and dying, while the trees and galaxies observe objectively our never-ending struggle to know why. Yeah, I figured we'd end the poems of the straight out scribes on a question mark. Why? I believe she did put a question mark there. She did. Why? Okay. So next month, coming up, starting tomorrow, we will be featuring for the month of September, no less than the one and only, the inimitable, the infamous, the incredulous, the superb poems of Mr. Gil Scott Heron. So for the entire month of September, we'll give you some poems to remember from May until December, and maybe even through November of the following year. So make sure to tune in and listen here. Now, right now, today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We've got a poem we're doing for today. It's a standalone poem. Excuse me, not a poem. It's an essay, and it's written by none other than Doc Ock, and I called it "Don't Get It Twisted." I love Kwanzaa. Don't get it twisted. I love Kwanzaa. So just before we even get started down the path, I want you to know I love Kwanzaa. Now, my family is a big Kwanzaa celebrating family. It wasn't always that way. We started out way back in the day, about 1973. we celebrated our first Kwanzaa. Now, to our understanding, what we knew of Kwanzaa, it was a family celebration. And so we celebrated it in-house, right here in this home. That's where we celebrated Kwanzaa. And it was just a small gathering. It was just us, myself, my mother and father, and my two brothers. So the five of us. We celebrated Kwanzaa. Now, as children, we didn't know what Kwanzaa was supposed to be. We never heard of no daggone Kwanzaa, could just barely pronounce Kwanzaa. But we knew about Christmas. And we knew we loved Christmas. We loved getting that Sears and those penny catalogs and using them like a wish book, going through them, through the pages, flicking through the pages, looking for them, the presents that we wanted to surreptitiously indicate that we wanted by dog-earing the pages and everything in the book, so our parents could look through there and figure out what we really wanted, because we knew there was no Santa Claus. We knew there wasn't no white man coming down through our chimney, because we didn't even have one. So a fat chance, pardon the expression, of him coming down through the chimney. Now, so when we started celebrating Kwanzaa, it seemed like it would be a big deal because we were used to Christmas, etc., but it wasn't a big deal at all because we were celebrating with family. And we celebrated for all 7 days. We did what we needed to do. We did the candle lighting ceremony and everything, so on and so forth. And I don't know how many years later, a few years later, I believe maybe it was either before or right after I left for college, then that celebration went public. And we began celebrating Kwanzaa with our extended family, our community family, outside of the house in some kind of large facility where you could hold 100 to 200 people. We started doing it there. We did it up at Kent State University, where my father worked in the Center of Pan-African Culture. That's where we got started doing our public Kwanzaa celebrations. Well, we did it there for a few years while I was here in college. We did it while we did it in Seattle because we relocated to Seattle for a while. We celebrated out there with the public ceremonies, and we celebrated at home as well. And then when I graduated from college and moved to LA, I continued celebrating Kwanzaa in LA. Now, the first year I got to LA, I can't remember where I celebrated Kwanzaa or if I celebrated Kwanzaa that year. I do not recall. That would be 1984, December of 1984. But I do have the program from some of the subsequent celebrations starting in 1985, where I actually got a chance to celebrate with Dr. Maulana Karenga, and he is the founder of Kwanzaa. So I celebrated with him. My friend and I celebrated with him, as a matter of fact. His name is Adesanya Adeyeye. He came to LA after I did. He graduated after I did and came to LA looking to get into something else, move on to the next phase. And he was a musician, so he wanted to come where he felt like he could do something musically. So he came to LA. I helped him find a place to stay. He ended up staying at the Yoruba temple, Imole Olumo Akinwale Yoruba temple down on 42nd Street in Vermont. So he stayed over there, and he was looking for things to do musically where he could get paid. He didn't want to go to work at Popeyes. That's Popeyes in English. Okay. He didn't want to work there. He didn't want to do any other jobs. He just wanted to focus on the music. And so we looked for things that he could do with his music. And I, had been there for a while, so I already playing my music and performing. So I tried to help him with that task. Well, we heard that they were looking for some entertainers, some musicians for Dr. Karenga's Karamu. Now, the previous year before he got there, I'd heard about Dr. Karenga's Karamu, and I heard he was celebrating in Marina del Rey. Now, I just got to LA, so I didn't know much about LA or the neighborhoods in LA, who lived where and who did what and when, and I didn't know about all that. But when I heard Marina Del Rey, it didn't say black folks. So I was curious as to what was going on with him over at Marina Del Rey. Well, I didn't go to that celebration. I know I didn't go to that one. But the following year, when my friend came, we went down to the Pan-African Cultural Center Dr. Karenga had established over on 4th Avenue. We went over there and we auditioned. They liked what we had to offer, and they said they would like for us to perform at that year's Kwanzaa. So we said, great. How much does it pay? And they were like, pay? Oh, well, we thought you would be honored, that it would be such an honor that you would do it for free. And we said, yeah, we'd like to, but we got bills to pay, especially to my friend. This is how he's making his money. And this is New Year's Eve. We were going to perform for the Karamu. So, you know, all musicians on New Year's Eve are looking for a paying gig. They ain't looking to do no free gig on the Karamu. So they went and discussed it, came back and made us an offer. We took the offer because we weren't looking to make a hill of money. We weren't looking to make grand theft money. We just wanted to know that they appreciated what we had to offer. That's all. So it was a mere token gesture. Anyway, so we did that, and we went over there and we performed. Now, we had also, before we got there, I had already heard the previous year that not only was Dr. Karenga doing the celebration at Marina Del Rey, but they were charging $10 a pop. Now, that was a lot of money back then. Gas was less than $1 a gallon. So $10, that's a bit of change. Okay. So he was charging $10 a head. And I was like, whoa, $10 a head. Why is he charging money? Because according to the book, you don't charge money for any of the nights. There's nothing in there about a fee. Okay. Now, what is in the book are 7 principles. And I'll outline a couple of them that are relevant. Collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, creativity, and umoja, which is unity. Okay, so that's 4 out of 7 principles right there that seem to relate to this Karamu. And so in the book, it talks about how the Karamu is a time, it's an in gathering, the whole family gets together, or the community gets together, and everybody will bring a dish, and everybody will put their dishes together, and they will share in a collective feast and a celebration with lots of kuumba, lots of creativity, entertainment, etc. going on. So that's how we looked at the Karamu. That's how I looked at it. I don't know how Adesanya looked at it, but that's what I knew about it. So to charge money seemed to go against the grain, number one. Number two, when we got there, we saw that the venue, which was had been moved from Marina Del Rey to Southwest Community College down in Inglewood, that it was a large venue. It had to hold at least 200-300 people in there. They had hired, keyword, hired, a caterer. An Ethiopian restaurant was providing the food, and they were serving the food. So I'm like, you know what? I'm glad we told them that we weren't going to do this for free, because ain't no way in the world them Ethiopians coming down here giving away all this daggone food on the humble. They getting paid. They got to get paid for the food and their time to cook the food as well as serve the food. So when I saw that, I said, yeah, now I understand why they're charging $10 a pop. So the whole communal food thing, that was off the table. Other places I went to before and since, we still do that. We still have the communal food thing going on. People serve it up. You know, there's no catered affair. It's not usually a catered affair. Anywhere else that I've been, and I've celebrated in at least 6 or 7 states, okay, and multiple locations in those different states. So that was odd. The point here is this. I saw and I learned from Dr. Karenga directly through experience, which he says is not the best teacher, it's just the hardest way to go, that Kwanzaa is not formulaic. It's not something you read about in a book and then you implement it exactly the way you saw it in that book. That's like going to the shoe store and all they have are size 9s and you wear a size 10. You don't buy those shoes. You need some flexibility, the ability to do things that, what's the word for it? That comport with your temperament, your ability, your situation. Okay? You got to be flexible. So if you're thinking that you're going to celebrate Kwanzaa by reading something out of a book and then going exactly by the book, what's going to happen is Kwanzaa's going to die. That's what's going to happen. And that's why I started off the title of this, Don't Get Twisted, I Love Kwanzaa. Because some of us don't have that kind of perception of Kwanzaa, that it must be flexible enough to meet the needs and the demands of the times and the place and the people where you're at. Because Kwanzaa is by the people, for the people, of the people, not of the book. Now, last thing I'm going to say about Kwanzaa real quick, just to wrap this up, because my time is already out. I've already run out of time. When we have to think of Kwanzaa like we think of European classical music. Most people think of when they think of European classical music, the first thing they think of, oh, you have to be able to read music to play it because it's all about notes on a piece of paper. Not true. That's what we see now because they have killed it by writing all those notes down and trying to conform to what's on that piece of paper instead of what they're feeling in their hearts. They ignore what's in their heart and go with what's on that paper. Okay, the conductor's up there conducting, and he's pointing out, you go now, and they're going by those notes. Period. There is no, what do you call it? Innovation. There is no, what do you call that? Oh, there's another word, I can't think of it. It's like innovation, but there's nobody going off script just doing their own thing. Okay, in a nutshell. So, but it turns out that classical music did not start out that way. And my best example is when George P. Bridgetower, a black Polish man, and Beethoven played together at a concert hall. I believe they were in Vienna or Austria somewhere. And they played for the royal family and all the nobles and everything. Beethoven wrote a new piece, a violin concerto. It was his first violin concerto. When he wrote that piece, his copy machine broke down. Okay? So he could only make 1.5 copies that night before the concert. So what he ended up having to do, he gave the half a copy he had to Bridgetower to read, and he kept the full copy. Well, Bridgetower, when he ran out of text, he went and just looked over Beethoven's shoulder and just kept playing. And he played so well that when the concert was over, Beethoven jumps up and says, "No kein Mal, no kein Mal, no kein Mal," which translated in English means play it again, Bridgetower, play it again. Because he played it so damn well, he made Beethoven holler. Now, that's what European classical music used to be like more like jazz. You had an outline of the piece, but there was room in there for you to innovate, to put some life and some feeling into it, because without no feeling, there is no jazz. Without no feeling, there's no real European classical music. You just got notes on a piece of paper being spat out of a horn or some other instrument. Without a soul, there is no Kwanzaa. So whatever you're thinking about doing for Kwanzaa this year, you need to remember to include some soul in it. Because if you don't have any soul, you're killing Kwanzaa. So let's not kill Kwanzaa, because I love Kwanzaa. Don't get it twisted. Peace out, y'all. I'm out of here.